The next image. So when you're talking about media watch, as a watchdog, here the one is, of course, the gay campaign, which was of this year in India. And the other is images, I'm sorry, the images are a little dark. It's a protest that was happening in the capital against the killings of Christians, which happened in the eastern Indian state Orissa last year. It was a major incident. So these are those images. And the last image is, which I have actually taken from the BBC site. It's one of my favorite images. It's about in Kashmir, where in a public protest, the people are actually using the mobile. And even when there was a particular incident in which there was a land row over a shrine, and it erupted into a kind of freedom movement call, and people were right out on the streets, and they were taking it and putting it up on the internet. So here again, when I'm talking about what, like as Peter said, the viral nature of the internet, but what is important, I feel, is about you know, the place where people, opinions and facts are actually blurring. I think where we need to, I think media needs to be more responsible and to be more sensitive to the nuances of power equations that are breeding conflict. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So again, we have this issue about moderation, and Swati's brought in the very important concept of citizen journalism and social media and the impact that that is having. And I'd like us to pick that up a little bit later. But first, should the media even be involved? Does the media have a responsibility in reducing conflict? Malcolm X said that the media is the most powerful entity on earth. It has the power to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent. And that's power, because they control the minds of the masses. So if the media controls the minds of the masses, that was in the 1960s. Now we're in the Twitter age. What responsibility does the media have, if any, to reduce conflict? Is it there as a social service? Is it there to reflect? Or is it there to lead? Anyone who'd like to respond to that, please?
I'll have a go at this one. I think that fundamentally the media's job is the same as it always has. You cannot accept a responsibility to resolve conflicts. You can't accept a responsibility to mediate conflicts or manage conflicts. We each have a job to do. The main job of the media is old-fashioned, and I think this is also one of the points we mustn't forget. Despite all of these tools, they are just that, they're tools. The fundamental thing we're talking about is very old-fashioned. We're talking about social networks that have always existed as long as people lived in a family and lived in villages. The problem is about information, and it's about information management. The job of the media is always to get to the bottom of it, good old-fashioned journalism. This is I'm going to start sounding like a broken record. I guess Imtiaz is probably going to say much the same. But you can't do this, you cannot resolve conflicts without good quality journalism. And that means not reporting for the sake of trying to manage a conflict. You manage a conflict by having good information. And our job as journalists is to get good information, to get accurate information, to get fair, balanced information. And that means, as I said, doing the hard job of getting beneath the superficial rubbish which the politicians, the power brokers use in these things. I just very quickly want to talk generally about Africa and tribal conflicts in general. One of the problems is that tribalism is very much a cliche which is often used to explain conflict in Africa. It's something that means everything in a fuzzy kind of way, but actually tells you nothing about what's going on behind any of these conflicts. And almost invariably, if you scratch the surface, you find that it's a conflict over resources of some sort, whether it's political resources, land, water, minerals, whatever. But it takes effort, time, energy and professionalism to get to that story. And in most cases, social media can't do that. It does it in some cases. I'm not denigrating, but what I'm saying is that there always has to be a role for professional journalists to get to this information and to make sure that it stays there, it stays as part of the public discourse.
And yes, please. If you can also pick up this question as well. How can we tell the difference between the rubbish and the good information?
Okay. You know, I think one of the key issues of watching all these developments that I mentioned in the past, the Vietnam, Watergate, and everything else, the key difference that one is dealing with today is that government, the huge amount of multi-million, billion-dollar machinery that has emerged behind selling of policies is pretty much paralleling the same kind of multi-million-dollar marketing campaigns to sell Coca-Cola or fast foods. And the difference between the two is pretty much the same, between the new backlash that is arising, because people are beginning to realize that inundating yourself with Cokes and fast foods and ice creams and others and hamburgers is probably not a very good thing eventually, but there is a whole new health and wellness phenomena that is arising as a counteraction. But if you look at the amount of money that is spent every day to sell you a hamburger or a Coke or an ice cream, convinces you to believe that that is actually the right thing to do, that this is somehow cool or fancy or sexy. Whereas the people who are selling you other things like yoga and health and wellness and vegetarianism and meditation and all the other things isn't quite in that genre. I mean, they don't have the kind of bucks that is there behind it to sell you that. So the independent media is actually dealing with all the spin doctors that have gone in the past 2-3 decades who have tried to sell us these things. And when you have an entire military machinery, which is today probably one of the largest creators of arms and ammunition, the arms and ammunition business does not make a profit in an age of peace and quiet. So that thing has to be sorted out. And the role of the media eventually in doing that is to be able to tell the people the difference between and here again I feel very strongly personally about this, because some of the best known correspondents who covered the Vietnam War, again just a couple of 100 kilometers from here, brought that war to an end because they were able to point out to the American public the difference between what was being told to the American public through what was known as the 5 o'clock follies, the military briefings which nobody believed, and what was actually reality going on in the battlefield. And that is what made all the difference. And to bridge that gap is going to be a monumental problem, particularly given the fact that a lot of the media itself today is being owned by the same corporations that are profiting from selling wars and mayhem. Maybe Peter might...